only to realize it might be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. That moment when your fingertips brush the edge of a coin and you catch its unusual sheen. Your pulse quickens as a rush of possibility floods in. Some quarters from 1996 carry stories of minting quirks and printing oddities that have turned everyday change into collector's gold. You might be staring at one right now in a dusty jar or mixed in with your recent pocket haul. Today's first spotlight shines on the 1996 Washington Quarter, a piece that blends common circulation with hidden rarities and error varieties that seasoned collectors can't help but chase. The journey of the 1996 quarter began with its role in honoring America's capital city. This release continued the Washington Quarter series that started back in 1932, originally celebrating the bicentennial of George Washington's birth. By the mid-1990s, the design featuring Washington's profile was so familiar that most people scarcely registered its presence. Yet the Philadelphia and Denver mints put millions of these into circulation, unaware that minor production missteps would later spark intense collector interest. Tracking down the precise origin of a rare variant often means knowing which mint mark to look for and what anomalies to watch. One of the most sought-after markers on the 1996 issues is the elusive double die obverse. On certain Philadelphia minted specimens, the headline letters spelling Liberty and the date show a faint yet unmistakable secondary impression. This doubling isn't always obvious at first glance. The trick is to position the coin under strong light, tilt it slightly, and let the letters catch the glare. If you see a ghostly echo of the primary letters edging to the right or above each character, you're holding a double die, an error that can multiply the coin's base value by tens or even hundreds of dollars. Beyond doubling quirks, the 1996 quarter also offers a handful of off-center strikes. Because the planchet slipped a bit during striking, some coins bear part of the design shifted toward one side, sometimes exposing blank planchet along the rim. The degree of off-centering matters. A 2% shift attracts modest premiums, but anything over 10% can push a worn example into four-figure territory. Coin grading services like PCGS and NGC will often note the exact offset percentage right on their labels, making it easier for buyers and sellers to negotiate fair values. Market fascination with these error coins has steadily climbed. As of early 2025, auction records for a mid-grade double-die 1996 quarter hovered around $650, while a top-graded specimen snapped up bids near $2,200. Off-center quarters with a noticeable 10% shift fetched anywhere from $300 to $1,800, depending on overall strike and surface quality. These figures sliding seamlessly from the 1980 quarter's mint floor mysteries. The 1997 Washington quarter steps into the spotlight with its own set of quirks hidden in plain sight. By this time, George Washington's profile had graced the quarter for over 6 decades, yet even this well-worn design yielded surprises. With more than 1.2 billion pieces struck across Philadelphia, no-mintmark, and Denver, D. Finding a run-of-the-mill 97 quarter in pocket change is a sure bet, but uncovering one of the rare error varieties transforms an ordinary coin into a prized collectible. Back in 1997, minting technology had improved, but human oversight still played a role. The most eye-catching mistake is the double die obverse, where the date numerals and parts of "In God We Trust" ghost alongside their originals. These subtle shadows along Washington's hairline and the motto can go unnoticed in circulation, but under magnification, their parallel images leap out. While a worn example might only hint at doubling, a well-preserved mint state specimen reveals crisp doubling that fascinates die error enthusiasts. Denver's mint mark also has its own story. On some 97D quarters, the D itself carries a secondary imprint slightly offset, a telltale sign that the punch was repositioned and struck twice. Though less dramatic than a full double die obverse, this mint mark quirk commands attention, with collectors hunting down examples where the ghost D nestles sliding right out of the 1993 quarter's surprises and into a new era. The 1980 Washington quarter holds its own mysteries that collectors prize. Struck at both Philadelphia and Denver, the 80 quarter carried the same portrait of George Washington designed by John Flanagan, but subtle shifts in minting practice unleashed a handful of anomalies that set certain pieces apart. As the U.S. Mint processed millions of these quarters to meet growing demand, a few coins slipped through with peculiarities, errors, repunched mint marks, and die clashes that transformed an everyday circulation piece into a sought-after collectible. Back in 1980, the economy was navigating inflation and changing coin demand, prompting the Mint to adapt its operations. Both the Philly and Denver facilities churned out over 600 million Washington quarters each, ensuring ample coinage for commerce. Yet pressure on equipment and die maintenance sometimes led to die clashes, instances where the reverse design imprinted faintly onto the obverse die, creating ghostly impressions around Washington's profile. Collectors began to notice these when examining rolls under magnification in the early 1990s, realizing that a small handful of coins bore these accidental imprints, offering a tangible link to the Mint's bustling production lines. The roster of rare 1980 quarter varieties is headlined by die clashes, repunched mint marks, and the elusive double die obverse. Die clash examples often show faint traces of the eagle's wings or arrows across Washington's cheek or the legend encircling his head. Repunched mint marks, especially on Denver pieces stamped D twice with slight misalignment, are prized, as they reveal an earlier, poorly seated punch beneath the final mark. The true jackpot, though, is the double die obverse. Washington's hair, the motto "In God We Trust," and date numerals appear with a faint shadow image offset by a hair's breadth. Such doubling never made it into regular pocket change, making authentic pieces exceedingly rare. When these anomalies hit the auction block, the bidding escalates quickly. A circulated die clash quarter might sell for $75 to $150, depending on clarity, while a repunched D mint mark in uncirculated condition can reach $200 to $400. Uncirculated double die obverse quarters, graded MS63 to MS65, regularly command five-figure prices, with top-end coins certified MS66 striking near $15,000 in recent years. In June 2020, a near-flawless MS67 double die obverse quarter achieved a hammer price just shy of $20,000 at a major sale, setting a high watermark for this variety. Such headline-making results trickle down through collector circles, fueling speculation and excitement every time one of these error quarters reappears. Behind these numbers lie stories that give the 1980 quarter extra character. One dealer recalls a humble piece of change slipping through fingers turns out to be a treasure chest in disguise. Today, we're zeroing in on three quarters that might be hiding in your pocket change, attic stash, or that dusty jar on your dresser. The elusive 1993, 1980, and 1997 USA quarters, each boasting quirks and rarities that send collectors' hearts racing. But before you start hunting your couch cushions, let's launch right into the first contender, the 1993 quarter, and uncover what makes this seemingly ordinary coin a star in the numismatic world. The story of the 1993 quarter begins at the Denver and Philadelphia Mints, where millions rolled off the presses sporting the familiar profile of George Washington on the obverse and the eagle clutching arrows and olive branch on the reverse. While most 1993 quarters stayed in circulation like their predecessors, a handful slipped through quality controls with striking anomalies. These stray specimens emancipated themselves from the mass-produced herd, leaving collectors eager to track them down. Interestingly, the sudden interest in the 93 quarter didn't emerge overnight. By the late 1990s, as coin collecting experienced a resurgence, enthusiasts began spotting unusual doubling and faint die cracks, prompting closer inspection of what once seemed an everyday coin. What sets a 1993 quarter apart is its roster of errors and varieties. The most sought after among these is the double die obverse, where Washington's cheek, hair strands, and even the motto Liberty appear to ghost in miniature replicas of themselves. Then there are the die cracks, thin lines running across the field or inbounding into the design elements, sometimes forming unique patterns that almost resemble tiny rivers etched into the metal. Perhaps the rarest anomaly is the overdate, a faint trace of an earlier year visible beneath the stamped 1993. Hunter's prize coins showing vestiges of a 1983 or 1992 beneath the final strike, because those occur when an earlier die wasn't fully re-engraved. Spotting these details requires a sharp eye and a loupe, but the payoff can be substantial. When a standout 1993 quarter crosses the auction block, bidding wars erupt. In circulated grades, a modest double die example might fetch anywhere from $50 to $150, reflecting curiosity more than scarcity. Uncirculated mint state pieces in MS 63-65 can command $500 to $1,200, depending on the crispness of the doubling and overall eye appeal. One headline-making sale in 2021 saw a pristine MS 66 Plus double-die obverse quarter hammer for the better part of $3,500. Sliding into our next treasure, the 1983 Washington quarter might look like just another face in the crowded lineup of modern clad coins. But believe me, this unassuming piece has a handful of surprises that keep seasoned collectors on the hunt. Just like its 1972 cousin, the 1983 issue was struck in massive numbers, over 800 million in Philadelphia and another 270 million in Denver. But among those are striking errors and rare finishes that turn everyday pocket change into museum-worthy gems. The story of the 1983 quarter begins amid America's bicentennial buzz of earlier decades, when the Washington design had settled into people's wallets as a familiar emblem of commerce. By '83, the minting process was highly mechanized, yet errors still crept in. Business strikes rolled out at Philadelphia, no-mintmark, and Denver, D, while San Francisco churned out proof sets under the S-mint mark. Back then, circulating quarters were firmly copper-nickel clad, not silver, but that didn't dampen the fervor for varieties and mistakes hiding in plain sight. One of the most sought-after anomalies on the 1983 quarter is the double die obverse, particularly on Denver strikes. Picture the motto, "In God We Trust," with a subtle, ghostly second impression, sometimes stretching along the rim or hovering above the letters. On mid-grade circulated coins, you might spot a faint echo of lettering, but in uncirculated examples, the doubling can leap off the surface like an optical illusion. Collectors break these down by strength: weak, medium, and strong doubling, with strong DDOs fetching several times more in value. In circulated grades, you might pay $20 to $40 for a medium-strength DDO, while a crisp, high-grade strong variety can push into three figures. But error hunting on the 1983 quarter doesn't stop with doubling. Repunched mint marks, RPM, create a second layer of intrigue. Denver's mint mark punch sometimes slipped, leaving a faint shadow of D just millimeters away from the primary mark. These ghost punches vary from nearly imperceptible to boldly misaligned, and no two are exactly alike. Mid-grade RPMs often trade hands for $30 to $60, while mint state examples in MS 65 and above can command $150 or more. Beyond DDO and RPM, full-bellied die cracks offer another pathway to rarity. As working dies wear down, tiny fissures can spread across the obverse or reverse, creating lace-like lines that spiderweb around Washington's profile or Liberty's eagle. Some collectors chase large, dramatic die cracks that span from the rim to the motto or vaulting arcs, valuing those coins at $50 to $100 even in lower grades. Rarely, a heavily cracked die will fracture so severely it flakes off a chunk of design. Those dramatic error coins can sell for several $100s at specialty auctions. While many of these error varieties trade at accessible prices, the real prizes emerge when condition and error converge. A 1980, something about the lettering looks off, almost as though Liberty and the date have a faint, double outline. That subtle ghost image is the telltale sign of a double die error, and before you know it, an ordinary pocket coin has become a gateway to an exciting world of numismatic treasure. The Washington quarter was introduced back in 1932 to commemorate the bicentennial of George Washington's birth, and collectors have been hunting for its secrets ever since. By 1972, the quarter was firmly embedded in everyday commerce, struck in massive quantities at three mints: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. These coins were never intended to become prized collectibles. They were the workhorses of American currency, ferrying quarters for groceries, buses, and parking meters. Yet within those millions lie die varieties and minting quirks that transform a simple day in change hunting into a thrilling detective hunt. At the heart of the 1972 quarters allure is the double die obverse, often abbreviated as DDO. During the minting process, the hub that impresses the design onto the working die can sometimes shift slightly between impressions. When that happens, details like the date or Liberty can appear twice, one image ghosted against the other. The effect ranges from a light shadow to a bold double image so pronounced that you can't unsee it once you spot it. Finding a DDO on a circulated quarter can be surprisingly rewarding. Many circulate with no obvious errors at all, so discovering that doubling elevates the coin from a few cents to dozens of dollars in value, depending on the error's strength and the coin's condition. Collectors break down the DDO varieties by mint and by the location of the doubling. On Denver strikes, the doubling often shows most clearly around the 17 in the date and the first two letters of Liberty. On San Francisco issues, the doubling may be more prominent near the president's hairline or the rim. Learning to spot these nuances becomes a passion for error collectors who pore over online galleries, reference books, and die-variant guides to match their finds. It's a hobby that combines the thrill of the hunt with a dash of history, as each error tells the story of a momentary hiccup in the mint's production process. But doubling isn't the only quirk hiding in 1972 quarters. Repunched mint marks, abbreviated RPM, add another layer of fascination. Back then, mint marks were manually punched into the working dies by a mint employee. If their hand slipped, a faint secondary D or S would appear beside the primary mark, like a shadow imprint. Those ghost mint marks can be so subtle that they escape initial inspection. Only a magnifying glass or a good loupe will reveal the slight misalignment. RPM collectors prize these anomalies for their unique fingerprints. No two repunches are exactly alike, since each slip of the tool left a one-of-a-kind imprint. Beyond errors, the condition of the coin itself plays a massive role in its desirability. A quarter that's lived a hard life, bouncing through tills and laundromats, might shifting gears from a coin born in the age of modern striking. Our journey moves back 6 decades to the 1965 quarter, a coin that, at the time, stirred controversy by ushering in the end of silver in everyday change. As the mint grappled with skyrocketing silver prices in the early 60s, Congress authorized a shift to a cupronickel-clad composition, and the first clad Washington quarters rolled out in 1965. While most of these pieces merely juggled pocket change, a few anomalies slipped through, creating the rarest of clad errors and turning what many brushed aside into prized collectors' items. The story begins with economic pressures. Silver, trading at over $1.29 per ounce by early 1965, was worth more as bullion than as coin metal. In response, the Mint's Philadelphia and Denver facilities switched from 90% silver planchets to a sandwich of pure copper cores bonded between outer layers of copper nickel. This transition happened practically overnight, and the rush led to flaws in bonding, alignment, and planchet preparation. The Oslo-based Qualimint process that normally ensured perfect adhesion proved too slow, so a handful of underbonded quarters emerged, coins with layers peeling at the edges or completely separated, revealing the copper core. At first glance, a standard 1965 quarter looks identical to its silver predecessor, John Quincy Adams' Washington on obverse, the eagle perched on reverse, in God We Trust beside him. Yet, anomalies in that first year of clad production make a handful of these coins striking exceptions. One of the most sought after is the missing clad type, a rare copper-nickel clad failure, where the outer layers flake or peel, sometimes leaving discs that appear to be solid copper, despite originating from what should be a copper core hidden inside layers. Another prized variety is the double die reverse, where the eagle's wings or the letters AG, for Antigua, sorry, for God, and trust, carry a subtle shadow doubling. Only a few dozen of these have been authenticated by grading services. Values start at face for most circulated examples. The clad 1965 quarter is so common that loose pocket finds were often hoarded en masse during the 1970s. Yet, condition and error type change everything. A typical MS63 might trade for a couple of dollars among specialists, while an MS65 jumps to $10 or even $15, fueled by interest in high-grade clad issues. When a missing clad failure or a pronounced double die enters the market, Have you ever held what looks like an everyday 25-cent piece and realized it might hide a fortune? Today's spotlight lands on a quarter that spent decades flipping through pocket change before collectors began to pry it from circulation. The 1995 USA quarter. By the end of our time together, you'll know why this surprisingly modern coin can command five-figure prices, how to spot the subtle errors that send values through the roof, and what condition really means when you're weighing a mint-state specimen against one that's taken a few knocks. The story begins back in the early 1990s, when the U.S. Mint was pushing to modernize its production and meet growing demand. Although the nationwide surge of interest really kicked off in 1992 with the 250th anniversary of Washington's birth, by 1995 the Philadelphia and Denver mints were running at maximum capacity. The Philadelphia facility, in particular, was rolling out quarters with a blistering pace, and quality control standards slipped just enough to let a handful of misplaced dies and misaligned hubs produce anomalies that no one planned. A batch of these errors wound up mixed with standard strikes, discharged into circulation and melted into piggy banks and vending machines, where they lay nearly forgotten until a new generation of error hunters started keeping sharp eyes on pocket change. At first glance, the 1995 quarter looks identical to any other Washington quarter. George's profile on one side, the eagle on the reverse, and Liberty boldly arched above. But errors reveal themselves in tiny details. One of the most